The grand ballroom of the Imperial Garden Hotel buzzed with laughter and clinking glasses. Red lanterns swayed gently overhead, casting a warm glow over the crowd of nearly 200 guests. It was the annual company celebration, hosted by my father-in-law, the CEO of Chen Industries, or so everyone believed. I stood in the corner, nursing a glass of water, watching my wife mingle effortlessly among the executives and their families. Her designer dress shimmered under the lights, a stark contrast to my simple button-down shirt and slacks. I'd learned long ago that blending into the background at these events was easier than enduring the pitying looks and whispered comments. "There he is," a voice sneered nearby. "The company's most expensive decoration." I didn't need to turn around to know it was my brother-in-law, David, already 3 drinks deep. His friends chuckled, emboldened by the alcohol and the crowd's protection. My wife, Elena, glided over with her mother in tow. Her expression was tight, embarrassed. "Why are you standing here alone? You're making me look bad." "I'm just..." "Just what?" "Being useless as always." Her mother, Victoria, cut in sharply. "My daughter could have married the Chen heir, you know. Instead, she chose this." The nearby conversations quieted. Heads turned. My wife's face flushed, whether from shame or anger, I couldn't tell. "At least try to be sociable," Elena hissed. "Go make yourself useful. The staff needs help in the kitchen." It was a test. It was always a test. I nodded quietly and began walking toward the service entrance, feeling dozens of eyes tracking my retreat. The whispers erupted behind me like a wave. I'd almost made it to the kitchen when Elena's voice rang out across the ballroom. "Wait." I turned. She stood in the center of the room, holding a large bucket. My stomach dropped. "Since you're so eager to help the staff," she announced, her voice carrying to every corner, "maybe you should look the part." The bucket tipped. Gray, filthy mop water cascaded over my head, soaking through my clothes, filling my shoes. The stench of chemicals and grime hit me immediately. Dirty water dripped from my hair into my eyes. The room erupted in laughter. Elena's father, Richard, guffawed loudly, slapping his knee. "That's my girl. Finally putting him in his place." Victoria doubled over, clutching her pearls. David raised his glass in a mock toast. Even the staff members, my wife's colleagues, covered their mouths to hide their grins. I stood there, dripping, silent. Not because I was shocked, I'd endured years of their contempt, but because I was calculating, measuring, deciding. Elena approached me, her heels clicking sharply on the marble floor. Up close, I could see the mixture of triumph and disgust in her eyes. "This is what you deserve," she whispered, just loud enough for the nearby guests to hear. "For being a burden on my family. For having no ambition. For being nothing." She turned to her audience, raising her voice. "Let this be a lesson. This is what happens when you settle. When you marry beneath you." The applause was thunderous. I wiped the filthy water from my face with my soaked sleeve. My phone buzzed in my pocket, waterlogged but still functional. A message from my assistant, "Board meeting confirmed for 9 a.m. tomorrow. All documents prepared." I looked at my wife, at her triumphant smile, at the crowd of sycophants surrounding her family. At Richard, who'd been embezzling from the company for 3 years. At Victoria, who'd been accepting bribes from contractors. At David, who'd been selling company secrets to competitors. I knew all of it. I'd known for months. I'd been waiting for the right moment. "I think I'll head home," I said quietly. Elena waved me away dismissively. "Yes, go. Clean yourself up. You're embarrassing me." As I walked toward the exit, leaving a trail of dirty water behind me, I pulled out my phone and sent a single message to my head of security. "Execute tomorrow as planned. No exceptions." Tomorrow, everything would change. Tomorrow, they would learn the truth about the useless husband they'd just humiliated. Tomorrow, the real owner of Chen Industries would finally step out of the shadows. The boardroom on the 48th floor of Chen Tower had floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked the entire city. At exactly 8:45 a.m., the executives began filtering in, each carrying tablets and leather portfolios, each wearing their most confident expressions. Richard sat at the head of the table, as he had for the past 15 years. To his right, the Chief Financial Officer, Thomas Webb. To his left, the VP of Operations, Margaret Song, both completely loyal to Richard, or so they believed. "Anyone know what this emergency meeting is about?" Margaret asked, settling into her chair. Richard shrugged, checking his Rolex. "Probably the quarterly reports. Nothing we can't handle." The door opened. My assistant, Rachel Kim, entered carrying a stack of folders. The room fell silent. Rachel had been my eyes and ears for 3 years, operating under the guise of a mid-level administrative assistant. No one had ever suspected. "Good morning," she said crisply. "The meeting will begin shortly. Please review the materials in front of you." She placed a folder before each person. Richard opened his immediately, his confident expression faltering as he scanned the first page. "What is this?" he demanded. "Financial discrepancies," Rachel replied evenly. "Unauthorized transfers. Falsified expense reports. The details are all documented." Thomas's face went pale. Margaret's hands trembled as she flipped through her folder. "This is absurd," Richard sputtered, slamming the folder shut. "Who authorized this audit? I'm the CEO. I'll have someone's head for this breach of—" "You're not the CEO." The voice came from the doorway. Every head turned. I stood there in a tailored charcoal suit, my hair still damp from the morning shower that had finally washed away last night's humiliation. Behind me stood 3 members of the actual board of directors, the silent partners who'd trusted me to handle the company while they enjoyed their retirements. Richard's face went from red to purple. "What are you doing here? This is a private meeting." "It's my meeting, Richard." I walked to the opposite end of the table, Rachel pulling out the chair for me. "I called it." "Your meeting." Richard laughed, but it sounded hollow. "You're nobody. You're my daughter's mistake of a husband. You have no authority here." I opened my own folder, slid a document across the table. "This is the original charter of Chen Industries, established in 1987 by Jonathan Chen, my grandfather. When he died, control passed to his only grandson, me." The silence was deafening. "My grandfather built this company from nothing," I continued, my voice steady. "When I was 22, fresh out of business school, he gave me majority ownership, 65%. He made me promise 2 things, protect the workers, and never let power corrupt me." Margaret found her voice first. "But Chen Industries, the name, is my mother's maiden name. My father took it when they married. I was born Alexander Chen. I dropped the Chen name in college, used my father's original surname for privacy. I wanted to see what I could accomplish without the family legacy hanging over me." Richard's hands were shaking now. "This is a lie. A forgery. I've been CEO for 15 years. You've been operational CEO, I corrected. Managing day-to-day functions. But you never owned the company, Richard. You just thought you did. I let you think that because my grandfather trusted you. He said you were a good man who'd take care of his workers." I stood, placing my hands on the table. He was wrong. Thomas tried to interject. "Now wait just a minute. Quiet." I didn't raise my voice, but he flinched. "Thomas, you've been approving Richard's embezzlement schemes for 3 years. Margaret, you've been accepting kickbacks from the Henderson construction contract. The evidence is all in your folders." "You can't prove," Margaret started. "I can prove everything." I nodded to Rachel, who activated the large screen behind me. Bank transfers appeared, time-stamped and documented. Email chains. Recorded phone calls. 3 years of meticulous investigation, all displayed in high definition. Richard shot to his feet. "My lawyers will destroy you. My daughter will divorce you and take everything you have. Elena doesn't know, does she?" I smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "She doesn't know about the missing pension funds. The offshore accounts. The The bribes paid to city officials using employee retirement money. His face went ashen. You used the workers' futures to fund your lifestyle, Richard. Your cars. Your vacation homes. Your wife's jewelry collection. You built your empire on their retirement dreams. I walked around the table slowly, making eye contact with each executive. Effective immediately, Richard. You're terminated for cause. No severance. Thomas, Margaret, same. Security will escort you from the building. You have 1 hour to clear your desks. You can't do this. Richard roared. I own 65% of this company. I can do whatever I want. I pressed the intercom. Security, please come escort our former executives out. As the security team entered, I added one more thing. Oh, and Richard? Elena works in HR, doesn't she? His eyes widened with sudden understanding. She'll be addressed separately, through official channels. The termination of 3 senior executives sent shockwaves through Chen Industries within hours. By noon, every employee knew something monumental had happened. By 2 p.m., the rumors had reached my wife. I sat in my new office, the CEO's suite on the top floor, watching the city below when Rachel buzzed in. Mrs. Elena is here. She's demanding to see you. Send her in. The door burst open. Elena stood there, still in her HR department blazer, her face a mixture of confusion and fury. Behind her, Victoria clutched her handbag like a lifeline, her usual composure shattered. What have you done? Elena's voice was shrill. My father just called me from the parking garage. He says he's been fired. He says you. She stopped, really looking at the office for the first time. At the nameplate on the desk. At the family photos on the credenza, photos of my grandfather, the company's founder. That's impossible, she whispered. I leaned back in my chair. Is it? Victoria pushed past her daughter. This is some kind of joke. Some elaborate prank. You're nobody. You've been unemployed for years. I've never been unemployed, Victoria. I've been working. Just not in ways you could see or understand. Elena's sharp mind was already connecting dots, her face going pale. The board meeting this morning, the emergency session, that was you. Yes. But you can't. You don't have the authority. I pulled out the ownership documents, slid them across the desk. Elena snatched them up, her eyes scanning frantically. Victoria read over her shoulder, her perfectly made-up face crumbling. 65%, Elena read aloud, her voice breaking. Majority shareholder. Primary owner. Alexander Chen, grandson of founder Jonathan Chen. She looked up at me, and for the first time in our 5-year marriage, I saw fear in her eyes. Chen? Your name is Chen. Was. Is. I stopped using it in college. Wanted to make my own way. Meet someone who'd love me for who I was, not what I owned. The implication hung in the air. Elena sank into the chair across from me, the documents fluttering from her hands. All this time, she whispered. All this time, you owned the company. And you let me. Humiliate me, belittle me, treat me like a servant. I kept my voice level. Yes. I wanted to see who you really were, who your family really was. My grandfather always said you can't know someone's character until you see how they treat people who can't fight back. Victoria found her voice, sharp and desperate. You manipulated us. You lied. I never lied. I just didn't correct your assumptions. You assumed I was unemployed because I didn't punch a clock. You assumed I was worthless because I didn't brag about my wealth. You assumed I was beneath you because I chose humility over arrogance. Elena's hands were shaking. Last night, the water. I didn't know. Didn't know I owned the company? No. But you knew I was your husband. You knew I was a human being. That should have been enough. She flinched as if I'd struck her. I stood, walked to the window. The city stretched out below, and somewhere in those buildings were hundreds of employees whose lives depended on the decisions I made. Your father embezzled $17 million over 3 years, I said quietly. He used pension funds, employee benefit accounts, emergency reserves. People who've worked here for decades, who saved every penny for retirement, their money is gone. Do you understand what that means? Elena's face was chalk white. He wouldn't. My father isn't. The evidence is in the folder marked Financial Crimes. Thomas Webb helped him hide it. Margaret Song took kickbacks to approve fraudulent contracts. All documented. All provable in court. Victoria collapsed into another chair, her handbag falling to the floor. This will destroy us. The scandal, the publicity. It should destroy you, I said flatly. But I'm not interested in destruction. I'm interested in justice and rebuilding. I returned to my desk, pulled out another folder. Elena, as an HR manager, you're entitled to see this. It's a formal complaint filed this morning against you for workplace harassment, creating a hostile environment, and abuse of authority. She took the folder with trembling hands. Abuse of authority? I never. You dumped dirty water on your husband, me, in front of 200 people, many of whom were company employees. You used a family event, technically a company-sponsored function, to publicly humiliate someone. That's textbook harassment. But you're not even an employee, she protested. I'm the owner. Which makes it worse. You created a hostile environment where employees thought it was acceptable to mock and degrade people. Several staff members have already come forward saying they felt pressured to laugh along, fearing for their jobs if they showed me sympathy. Elena's carefully constructed world was crumbling before her eyes. What are you going to do? I sat down, folded my hands. Your father, Thomas, and Margaret are terminated. They'll face criminal charges for embezzlement and fraud. The company will cooperate fully with prosecutors. Victoria let out a small sob. As for you, Elena. I paused, watching her. Even now, even terrified, she held herself with that same prideful posture. You're suspended pending a full HR investigation. If the complaints are substantiated, and they will be, you'll face disciplinary action up to and including termination. You're going to fire me, she said hollowly. Fire your own wife. I'm going to let the process work. If HR recommends termination based on your conduct, then yes. 3 days passed in a blur of meetings, press releases, and damage control. The media had gotten wind of the executive shakeup, but Rachel's team managed to keep the family drama out of the headlines. The official story, routine financial audit uncovered irregularities, appropriate actions taken. I was in my office reviewing the pension fund restoration plan when Rachel announced an unexpected visitor. There's a group here to see you. They are from the production floor. No appointment, but they say it's important. Send them in. 6 people filed into my office, wearing their work uniforms and carrying hard hats. They looked uncomfortable in the executive suite, out of place among the marble and mahogany. The oldest, a woman probably in her 60s with kind eyes and work-worn hands, stepped forward. Mr. Chen, she said, her voice steady despite her nervousness. I'm Sandra Martinez. I've worked in quality control for 38 years. Please, sit down. All of you. I gestured to the conference table by the windows. Can I get anyone coffee? Water? They exchanged glances, surprised. Sandra spoke again. We heard what happened. About Mr. Richard and the pension funds. Her voice caught. Some of us were planning to retire this year. We've been saving our whole lives. Your pensions are safe, I said immediately. The company has already begun the restoration process. Every penny will be returned, with interest. You have my word. A younger man, maybe 30, spoke up. We also heard about the party. About what misses, about what happened to you. The room fell silent. Sandra continued, her eyes wet. We laughed. Not because we thought it was funny, but because we were scared. Mr. Richard ran things a certain way. If you didn't go along, if you showed any sympathy to someone he was putting down. She wiped her eyes. I'm ashamed. We all are. You have nothing to be ashamed of, I said quietly. You were protecting yourselves. I understand that. But we should have been braver, Sandra insisted. My grandfather worked for your grandfather. He told me stories about Jonathan Chen, how he used to eat lunch with the floor workers, how he knew everyone's names. I've been here 38 years, and Mr. Richard never once asked about my family. But I heard you came to the floor last month when Terry's daughter was sick. You sent flowers to the hospital. I remembered. Terry worked in shipping, and his 10-year-old daughter had been diagnosed with leukemia. I'd visited them anonymously, just another concerned friend. How did you know that was me? I asked. Sandra smiled sadly. Terry described you. Said there was something familiar about you, but he couldn't place it. Then we saw the announcement about the new CEO, and we put it together. You were always there, weren't you? At company events, charity drives, the holiday party. Just watching, listening, learning, I corrected. Trying to understand the company my grandfather built. Trying to see if it still lived up to his values. The young man spoke again. Did it? I considered the question carefully. The foundation was still good. Strong workers, quality products, loyal customers. But the leadership had become corrupt. That's what I'm here to fix. By firing your own father-in-law, Sandra said. It wasn't a question. By holding people accountable, regardless of personal relationships. My grandfather taught me that power without responsibility is tyranny. Richard abused his power. He stole from you. That's unforgivable. Sandra reached across the table, placed her weathered hand over mine. Thank you. For caring. For coming back when you could have just sold the company and walked away. For being like your grandfather. After they left, I sat alone for a long time, looking at my grandfather's photo on the wall. He died when I was 25, just 3 years after giving me the company. Protect the workers, he'd said. They're not resources. They're people with families, dreams, mortgages, sick kids. Never forget that. I hadn't forgotten. My phone buzzed. A text from Elena. Can we talk? Please. I stared at the message for a long moment before responding. My lawyer will contact you about separation proceedings. Her reply came instantly. Please. I know I don't deserve it, but please just talk to me. One conversation. Against my better judgment, I agreed. My office. Tomorrow. 9 a.m. That evening, I returned to the house we'd shared for 5 years, the house her parents had bought for us, never knowing I could have purchased 10 of them without noticing the expense. The lights were on. Elena sat in the living room, still in her work clothes, surrounded by cardboard boxes. I'm packing, she said without preamble. I know you want me out. I just need a few days. Take the time you need. I moved to head upstairs. Wait. Her voice cracked. Please. Just sit. For a minute. I hesitated, then sat in the armchair across from her. Up close, I could see she'd been crying. Her makeup was smudged, her eyes red and swollen. I've been doing a lot of thinking, she said quietly. About who I've become. What I've become. She twisted her wedding ring, the simple band I'd given her, not knowing she'd complained to her mother that it was embarrassingly modest. I was raised to believe that worth equals wealth, that success means status, that kindness is weakness. My parents taught me that people are either above you or below you, and you treat them accordingly. I know, I said simply. You do, don't you? You saw exactly who I was, and you stayed anyway. Why? I kept hoping you'd choose differently. That given enough time, enough love, you'd realize that the values your parents taught you were hollow. But I didn't. She looked at me with devastating clarity. I chose cruelty every time. I chose pride. I chose humiliation over compassion. Even when you were kind to me, patient with me, I saw it as weakness. Elena stood up, paced to the window. The HR investigation concluded today. They're recommending termination with cause. No severance. No references. My career in this industry is over. She turned to face me. But that's not even the worst part. The worst part is that it's fair. It's just. I abused my position. I created a hostile work environment. I damaged the company's reputation. Everything in that report is true. What will you do? I asked. I don't know. My parents are facing criminal charges. Their assets are being frozen. David lost his job. Turns out the company he worked for doesn't employ the relatives of embezzlers. Everything we had is gone. She sat back down, deflating. My mother called me a failure. Said I should have managed you better, kept you under control. Even now, she doesn't understand. She thinks you're the villain in this story. And you? I asked. What do you think? Elena was quiet for a long moment. I think I threw dirty water on the kindest man I ever met because I was too blind and arrogant to see his worth. I think I destroyed my marriage, my career, and my integrity because I valued all the wrong things. I think. Her voice broke. I think I don't deserve forgiveness, but I wish I'd been smart enough to deserve you. It was the most honest thing she'd ever said to me. I'm not divorcing you out of revenge, I said quietly. I'm divorcing you because we never had a real marriage. You married someone you thought I was. I stayed with someone I hoped you'd become. Neither of those people exist. She nodded, tears streaming down her face. I know. I'm signing the papers. I'm not fighting for anything. The house, the car, anything with your name on it, it's yours. I'm taking my personal belongings and leaving. Elena. No. She held up her hand. Please. Let me have this one shred of dignity. Let me walk away without taking anything more from you. We sat in silence for a moment. Then she asked, the workers' pensions, you really restored them all? Every penny. With interest. And I've restructured the retirement plan so it can never be touched again. And Sandra Martinez? I heard you promoted her to Vice President of Quality and Ethics. She's been here 38 years. She knows the company, respects the workers, and has unquestionable integrity. She earned it. Elena laughed bitterly. You're everything my parents taught me to despise and everything I should have aspired to be. How's that for irony? 3 months later, I stood in the same ballroom where Elena had humiliated me. But this time, the decorations were different, simple, elegant, celebrating the workers rather than executives. The annual company party, reimagined. Sandra stood at the podium, announcing the new profit-sharing program. Beside her, Terry from shipping wiped his eyes as he accepted an award for 20 years of service. His daughter, cancer-free, waved from the audience. Rachel approached me with a tablet. The quarterly reports are in. Revenue up 18%. Employee satisfaction scores have tripled. And we've had over 300 applications for the new positions. Word's gotten out that this is a good place to work. My grandfather would be proud, I said. He would be. You've honored his legacy. I scanned the crowd. There was genuine laughter now, not the mocking kind from that terrible night. People relaxed, celebrated, felt valued. My phone buzzed. A message from Elena, saw the news about the company's success. You did it. You actually did it. I'm happy for you. And I'm sorry. Always sorry. I'd heard she was working at a non-profit now, making a quarter of her old salary, helping underprivileged families navigate social services. Her mother had disowned her for betraying the family by cooperating with investigators. Her father was serving 8 years for embezzlement. I typed back, I hope you find what you're looking for. Her response was immediate, I hope I become who I should have been. I put the phone away as Sandra called me to the stage. The crowd turned, curious. Many of them still weren't used to seeing me as the CEO, still remembered me as the quiet man who'd sometimes helped in the kitchen or carried boxes in the warehouse. I know many of you have questions, I began. About the changes, about what happened, about where we're going. So let me tell you a story about my grandfather. I spoke for 20 minutes about Jonathan Chen's vision. About building a company where people mattered more than profits, where integrity outweighed image, where kindness was strength. I told them about the mistakes made after his death, and the commitment to returning to his values. This company belongs to you, I concluded. Not in the legal sense, I own the majority shares. But in every way that matters. Your work, your dedication, your families depending on you, that's what makes this company real. I'm just the steward. You're the foundation. The applause was thunderous, but this time it felt different. Earned. Real. As the party continued, I stepped out onto the balcony for air. The city lights sparkled below, and somewhere in that vast landscape, Elena was probably closing up the non-profit office, David was probably job hunting, Victoria was probably visiting Richard in prison. Their world had collapsed, rebuilt on foundations of humility and consequence. Mine had expanded, built on the bedrock my grandfather had laid. Treat people with dignity, lead with integrity, remember that wealth without character is poverty of the soul. I thought about that night, about the dirty water, about the laughter. It seemed like a lifetime ago. In many ways, it was. That version of me, the one who'd stayed silent, who'd endured, was gone. Not because I'd claimed power, but because I'd finally used it for its intended purpose. Not revenge. Restoration. Not destruction. Redemption. Not just for the company, but for everyone who'd ever believed that cruelty was strength and kindness was weakness. Sandra joined me on the balcony. Quite a year, hasn't it been? That's an understatement. You know what your grandfather used to say. She smiled at the memory. He said, the measure of a person isn't how they treat those who can do something for them. It's how they treat those who can do nothing for them. You proved that, in the hardest way possible. I nodded, watching the city lights. I just wish more people understood that before they lost everything learning it. Some people never learn it, Sandra said wisely. But some do. I hear Elena's doing good work at that non-profit. Really good work. Maybe throwing that water on you was the wake-up call she needed. Maybe. I hope so. We stood in comfortable silence, listening to the laughter and music from inside. The company was healing. The workers were thriving. Justice had been served. And I, the man who'd been mocked as worthless, had proven that real worth isn't measured in what you own, but in what you protect, who you lift up, and how you treat people when you have every reason to treat them poorly. My grandfather had given me a company, but more importantly, he'd given me a compass. And finally, after years of watching it spin, I'd found true north. Not in revenge. In redemption. Not just for me, but for everyone willing to learn the lesson.